So then, hello and welcome to this episode of Natter with Neve, where I have the wonderful Peace Ravenwood with us. She is a rebel. She doesn't conform, and she is a survivor of trauma. And don't worry, we're not going to be going too deep into trauma today. We don't want to trigger anybody, but I do want to talk to Peace about how she's recovered from trauma, her links to nature, and how that has helped her because she is well, as you can see from her background, all the flowers and the greens, she is a wonderful advocate for the world and nature and what it can do to help us. So, hello, Peace. And I
I have.
love your name, by the way. How did you come about that name?
Oh, right. We're diving right into the woo-woo already, and I love that. Thank you so much. Great question. Because it's a very unusual name to carry. My birth name given to me by my mum and dad was Dawn. So I was born at 5:25 a.m. in the morning, so that was the most beautiful name to be given.
Mhm.
Yet my life led me on an incredibly deep path in the unseen realm and deep connection with spirit or creator of all that is. And it was in a shamanic retreat where I was actually chefing for the host because I used to be an amazing chef. Um, and we went on a really deep journey to meet our higher self, so our soul basically, who we often ignore in favor of our mind. And we had to ask them their name, and their name is Peace. And through the course of this retreat, where I was working and receiving, which was beautiful, my higher self was very, very sort of very vocal and said, if you are going to walk in this path of deep service, embody my name. And I was like, oh my God, okay, people are gonna think I'm weird because of my name. Um, and so, but I'm brave. Being an incredible warrior and in service from the divine or of the divine, I changed my name to Peace by Deed Paul. So it is my lawful name. And it has been for about 10 years, I think. Um, I'm aware that I'm kind of bit jerky, so I think our internet signal is a little bit unstable. I do apologize.
That's okay, don't worry about it. A
Okay.
beautiful name and beautiful story. And I didn't, when I heard your name, Peace, I obviously thought, because I know people call Faith and Hope. And as you said, your original name was Dawn. And then we get all kinds of weird and wonderful names these days as well, don't we? Like Apple and Blanket. And so I didn't think anything of it, but I love that you chose that name for yourself. And that, it's a case of you embodying um peace, not only peace, but also your higher self and your
Yeah.
soul. And people listening to us, and because I'm going to have quite a wide range of an audience for this podcast because I've invited all sorts of people to talk to us. So some of the people here talk listening may not be, as you and I, we've met through kind of our connection on Facebook, and probably because we're connected to the same people within the spiritual kind of realm, because I'm a Reiki master and I do guided meditations and channeling and all that sort of stuff. Um, a lot of people won't understand.
Mm.
When you say higher self or your kind of soul and awakening, what are we really talking about here?
Oh gosh, so this is obviously not definitive because we all have our own perspective, right? And perceptions of reality. And so this is obviously, please choose how you receive this. And that is how everyone is receptive in their own way, right?
Mhm.
So the higher self, let's look at what that could mean. For me personally, my higher self is the one I am yet to meet because we are not here in a fixed form. We're not meant to stay the same. We're meant to continually be challenged to grow, to expand, to become. a greater, grandest, most exceptional version of self. And the higher self, in my belief, for perception, is that which we are becoming. And that is the greatest version of self, which, if you want to look at the, moving into the soul aspect of it, and this might be incredibly exciting for some of your listeners to hear, through the work of Neil Donald Walsh with Conversations with God and all his amazing work, when you immerse in the realm of soul and spirit like that, your life, it's kind of one of those things you can't unknow it. Do you know what I mean? When you realize that we have been living in this timeline, I call it timelines, not lifetime. And when you're working in the realm of quantum, you'll understand what that means, that lifetimes are kind of like old paradigm understandings, whereas timelines are different realities all happening now at once. So that's different, right, to lifetimes where we think we're going from one life and then somewhere down the line we might come back again in a different form. This, it kind of expands that into, oh my God, everything's happening now. So if you have like past life memories of being in Atlantis, for example, that's happening right now in a different reality, different timeline. And we've all seen like these amazing films where this is all happening now, because there is only now. There's no yesterday is gone and tomorrow's not even here yet. There's only now, this minute, next hour. You're going to be a different person, right, to where you are right now in this moment. So soul, what we've been led to believe is a soul inhabits our body.
Mm-hmm.
And when you expand your awareness and perception, there is only one energy, and that is all that is. And all the billions of people on this beautiful earth that we call home are individuals of the one soul, having an individual experience. So soul is connected to all that is. We are connected to all that is. So our body is not inhabited by a soul. We are part of a mass collective of one soul, just having a different experience, because that's what Creator wanted, to experience life as a human.
Yeah, that's actually quite something that's quite hard to get your head around. I mean, I've read all of Neil Donald Walsh's books. In fact, I think I'm halfway through the fourth one of Conversations with God, and I kind of gave up on it a little bit, because it's really hard to get your head around all this. But I mean, I started off with introducing you and saying that you were going to talk about, how you overcame trauma and stuff. And while I'm not asking you to go into all of your trauma, how does this actually help somebody who might be suffering from trauma, who feels stuck or lost in their life? They're in that anxious or depressed state and they don't see a way out. How is something like this going to actually help them?
That is a really, really incredible question, and an expansive one as well, because when you are in the midst of the depth of your trauma, it's really hard to see a way out. We both know that.
Mm-hmm.
We consider all the things to try and get out of that situation, yet turning to Creator, God, Source, Great Spirit, whatever you wish to call that, energy that creates life, energy that creates solar systems and galaxies and everything. You don't even acknowledge that that's a thing, right? Because you're so deeply in, I can't even name it, how that feels, because we all feel that differently. Yet when we were chatting just before we started, to do this exchange, there comes a moment almost like that definitive moment where everything stops. There is a space of nothingness. This is what I felt in, which really cracked me into nothingness, becoming completely nothing. And it's not the first time in my life, I think we can all trace back through the golden thread, which is some of the process that I take my beautiful clients through, tracing back all those times in your life when you were fractured. And that's called soul loss, right? So parts of ourselves are shattered away from the whole because we need to compartmentalize to protect ourselves. That's the thing. And we don't even know we're doing it, but there comes a time when you are reduced to a point where you go, I have nothing left. And we're faced with whatever that is. We either go, I won't swear because this is a nice conversation. Strong words, insert your own here, where we either choose to check out. And believe me, I know many of us have been faced with that as our only option, is to just leave the body because we don't think we've got an exit. Or we go, insert own words, that way. And we go, right. And we call to the universe and we go, whatever we say, show me what the hell I am meant to do now. And that is like a turning point. If you get a terminal diagnosis of illness, it's the same thing, right? It's a massive trauma. It's just a shame that we don't know what we know until after we start on that expansion path, that growth path, that every single trauma, trigger, life event is an invitation. And it's a message. And we have a direction to take, whether we go, right, what is this teaching me? Right? And that's the big thing. What is this teaching me? And then you can explore it. And this is the work within the quantum regression and the medicine work with plant medicine, that we can really unlock the aspects of our highest intelligence. And we start to call those fragments home. We do that deep soul and power retrieval. And it's non-linear and it's messy as F. It's the word. Yeah. And that is all okay. However, anyone experiences these moments of restoration, because this is it. This recovery is a restoration of self and a soul embodiment. So you're embodying your soul. And believe me, it is not an easy process. That's why it's non-linear and there's no prescriptive at all to that. And this is what happened to me 3 years ago. My husband and I had the severest trauma. I survived domestic abuse for 13 years. And at the hands of another abuser who was a woman. I'm not going to give titles to these people and what they do from their own root of trauma. Was horrific. The worst experience that I've ever had in my life. My 13-year marriage was a breeze compared to this. And we lost everything. We lost our home. We lost our identities. Everything. And then I can't name exactly what happened, but we surrendered. And we were in a field with nothing around us one day, because we've been living in our van for 3 years since losing all this. We were just shown a different path. We chose a different path. Being ever resilient, even despite living in trauma all my life. I've been so freaking resilient and determined, because I know I'm here for a bigger purpose. And this is what I'm embodying right now as a soul midwife. So something happened and there was no noise. There was just birds and hundreds of dragonflies. And I broke into, there was so much stuff coming out. I just cried. And I said,
Mm.
we both looked at each other, my husband and I, he's just a beautiful, beautiful human. I don't even like to call him human because he's that awesome. We looked at each other and we went, what is this? We've never experienced a moment of absolutely divine peace. And we just cried. And from that moment onwards, that just so much happened. And I just feel that we're embodying all the lessons throughout this lifetime now, that nothing phases us. We just go, okay, so what's this teaching us? Let's look where, and I go into my own process with my own methods of healing. And that's where we've been ever since, and the expansion has been tremendous. And as a specialist in trauma recovery, as well as, really expanding the consciousness into the evolutionary process for New Earth, I love my life so much. And I look back on all the trauma and see and recognize the why we went and had these experiences with these other abusive people, and we see their trauma.
Mm.
That's the big gift, is being able to see and do not judge anyone for however they act, and that is pure consciousness and living as a conscious being.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's that saying, isn't it? Hurt people hurt people.
You do.
Um, and I had a very similar story with you. I got to the point where, I actually tried to leave my body, because everything just became too much. And actually, it wasn't that I wanted to leave life. It was that I wanted the pain to end. And that's the moment when I was introduced to Reiki. And obviously, my journey has progressed and changed from then. But that's when Reiki came into my life. And that's when I was first kind of like, I knew about my intuition. I'd been in touch with my intuition. In fact, I remember standing on the altar after we just signed the papers, thinking, what the F have I done? Um, this is not going to go well. And I knew that was my intuition speaking to me. In fact, the very first time I met the man, my intuition says, you don't want to go there. But he wore me down.
Yeah.
He'd obviously, and I allowed that as well. And I think that's one of the things that caused me an awful lot more pain and trauma as well, is that I actually kept, like, that inner voice, that inner critic kept beating me up for, one, getting into that relationship, and two, staying in it, and not only staying in it but having children, and then staying in it after the children. And so I had this, like, not only the trauma of being in a relationship and the trauma of childhood, I then was re-traumatizing myself all the time because I was constantly criticizing and judging myself for staying there, when actually at that time I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I didn't know any different. And actually things weren't quite bad enough, I think sometimes.
Mm.
I think we do an awful lot of the time. We have to hit that kind of rock bottom, don't we, before we can move. And nobody can decide for you what your rock bottom is.
No,
For
it's
some
all.
people, it might be much higher up than for others. Some
Yeah.
of us, as you said, trauma gave you so much resilience. And I think that's one thing, and we do. And we pride ourselves on our resilience as well, don't we? And I found, certainly for me, like, there was huge pride in my resilience and my perseverance, and that I could get through all this. And people would say, "Oh, you're amazing. You're doing all this." And all, my ex never helped out around the house, so I was bringing up three children. I was working full time. I was doing all the housework. I was, very active on the school PTA. Um, and how do you do all of this? Okay, I'm great, but inside I was dying. You know, the
Yeah.
busyness was just put everything, I don't know, he was just creating a barrier, I suppose, between me and my intuition and what I knew I really needed.
Yeah. And that's everyone we know, right?
Yeah.
Everyone. It doesn't matter if you're living in a tent in a wood hidden away somewhere because you've nowhere else. And believe me, that's been part of our reality. or you're a billionaire. Everyone has this story that only a handful of people may, if they're very fortunate and feel safe enough around to speak about it. And I feel
Mm.
that doing ourselves a disservice by not speaking about our experiences, because by not speaking about them, we can't help anyone recover. We can't help anyone see there is another choice always.
Mm.
And we have to wear our resilience with a badge of honor. You know, we can unfold into softness and healing.
But it takes courage to do that as well. It takes a lot of courage because when you look at, I suppose the kind of world that we occupy kind of in Facebook and other places, like I mean, I certainly know in my Facebook and my followers, an awful lot of people are spiritual. They're in the spiritual world. They're Reiki practitioners. They're like yourself, quantum healers. They're going into the Akashic records. They're talking about angels and all the rest of it. And they're very what we would call woo. But actually, I don't believe it's woo. I believe it's
Normal.
natural birthright. It's part of us. It's part of who we are. We are mind, body, and spirit. And we've been what's the word I'm looking for? Like we ignore all of that, don't we? We everything around us tells us to ignore our intuition, and we're herd animals as well in a way, aren't we? We want to be like everybody else, and we kind of like um yeah, we don't want to stand out. So it does take an awful lot of courage to follow a path of healing that's going to make you in some way stand out.
Yeah, and lose the fear of, being titled too much, too woo, too intense, too whatever. And that I'm all over that. These are the women that I serve, the ones that have been told all the things, when in fact they're highly sensitive beings. And we haven't been dumbed down. We see the world and experience the world in such a different way because we've always been connected to a higher frequency, even if we didn't know what the heck that was.
Mm-hmm.
Because Reiki and plants were my way into where I am becoming right now. I did my Reiki in the 90s, before it was super trendy. And we've seen the the advancements and the expansion of all the healing arts, right? And the
Yeah.
remembering, it's about the remembering and the coming home to all that you could possibly be as your clairsenses come back online. But like you say, we do live in a society that frowns upon those of us that are highly sensitive, and we can be marginalized. And it does take a great amount of courage to find the ones that you vibe with and then cease to give an F about what they title you and
Mm.
raise the unicorn fist, which is the middle finger, if you didn't know what.
I love that.
I was lucky in a way, if you want to call it luck, that I always didn't give a SH1T about society and the norms. Even in my horse career, because I was a professional horsewoman from a very young age, and I was in contact with the royal yards and the racing industry and saw the BS rife and the abuse of those beautiful animals. To this day, I call people out, especially around this time of year when it's the bloody
Mm.
Grand National, because they do not know they are complicit in causing abuse and death. And I was witness to all that. And I called the people out. I didn't give a shit they were millionaires or
Mm.
thought they were millionaires. They treated me like dirt. And I called them on it. I got sacked, but I don't care. Well,
Yeah.
even in the depths of not even really knowing myself, who does
Mm.
at that age, right? We just
Yeah.
think it's invincible. Um, that all that was trauma, right? Um, So all our life lessons are here to shape the direction we go in. And my call is return to soul, because when the soul leads and the ego doesn't, but the ego is there just to remind us that there might be a saber-toothed tiger that we need to fight at some point, but lead from soul. And the life is expansive and peaceful and in harmony with all that is. And we cease to then compete and look for hierarchy and look for the shiny object syndrome. Oh, if I just get this other qualification, for example, I'll be better. We demystify that, and we don't need to keep reaching for things outside of ourselves, is where I'm trying to say.
Or the latest iPhone or whatever it is. Yeah, that if you, and I think, from me, and when I look around, where I am and where I live, so many people, we live in concrete blocks and it's concrete all around us, and we've lost touch with nature, and people don't kind of, and then even like, I mean, I have a few great big local parks, but I go there during the day. I don't go there during the school holidays because it's full of teenagers smoking weed, and I don't like the smell of weed. So, um, and I just think actually we need to be more in touch with nature. We need to be, you know,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that actually can bring us back to in touch with everything, really. You mentioned plant medicine, but I think there's more than just kind of extracting things from plants to make medicine. It's actually putting your feet on the earth. It's actually looking around you and seeing what we're doing to the planet. And
Yes.
I think for so many people that feels so huge that it's much easier to just ignore it
Yeah, I
and
agree.
think that, oh well, I can't do anything by myself, so I'm not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Um, And actually, it is a case of, it's the Tesco's logo or whatever, every little helps. Um, it's very much so I think, with the environment and with our planet and stuff, that every little thing we can do will help. Um, and it's, for me, a lot of I mean, the whole purpose of this podcast is to make people feel connected, not isolated. Um, but not only just that connection with nature, but also to feel like that they can in some way help. So whether you and I talking helps somebody see something in themselves that they can change or make better, whether they realize that them just taking their can of tin beans they've had for lunch and rinsing that can out and putting in the recycling
Yes.
is helpful. Um, whether them just picking up a piece of litter they see in the street and putting it in the bin, that, as I keep saying, I say, I empower women, to use their voice. And when I say that, I don't mean for people to come onto podcasts like this or to get on stage to do TEDx talks. What I'm saying is, in our everyday life,
Mhm.
there are little things every single one of us can do that not only make us feel better, but help everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally with you on that. And I I I speak about our deep connection to nature, and how, I mean, I call her she, because she gives birth to everything, right? And she
Yeah.
nurtures, she provides everything that we need. It's not a mistake that we're living on this beautiful planet, right?
Mm.
Having these individual experiences of soul, or however you want to term that, if we don't look after our environment, and that's our immediate environment here,
Yeah.
it's because I work with permaculture, which is sustainability, but not in the woo woo blooming greenwashing, that all that BS out there.
Yeah.
There is no climate crisis. I'm going to come out and be brave. There is no climate crisis. We are in crisis. Mother's fine. Mother's just pissed off. So she's shifting and shaking, which she does brilliantly this time of year because she's birthing, right? So
Mm.
if you treat your mother like shit, don't be expecting her to feed and look after you, right? And
Mm.
this is, we dial it back to, that is actually our reality. We are not custodying this planet in a loving relationship.
Mm.
That's the fact. And I used to be super outspoken about this when I was really rad with how abusive we are to our mother. And when you really dial it out and you look in and you go, bloody hell, you're right. We are abusing this earth we live on because we're lazy, right?
Mm.
We've got so used to the Tesco local and the Aldi and the Lidl. Everything is convenience. Everything is throw it away, go and get something else. That didn't used to be the case a
Mm.
couple of years ago, right? We depend on this planet for our very essence of being alive. So really, I'm going to be brave and say this because I am a cosmic rebel. We're dumb, right? To abuse the very thing that gives us life. We are dumb.
Mm.
Why the heck would we do that? Because that's the relationship we've had with other humans. We've taken and we've never given back. It's just the way society has conditioned us. And this goes back to that real trauma conditioning from when we were in the
Mhm.
womb and the first 7 years of our life. That informs how we are but it doesn't have to be. We can change the pattern and we can evolve, right? And that's where we're at. This is an
Mm.
evolution process we are in right now as a species. So going right back to deeply connecting with nature as a sacred being, everyone can do that. It will radically change our future, but it needs a radical change in mindset to be able to do that. And that's what the majority, sadly, are not prepared to do because life is too comfortable. And this is the
Yeah.
agenda of 15-minute cities and the central digital currency and all the other lies and manipulations that were being seen in our face right now. It's no wonder it's in the headlines everywhere because they want us dumb enough to ignore it so it can carry on with it. Little realizing we will become extinct if we don't act. That's a fact.
I mean, yes, it is a fact, but I think for a lot of people, one, that seems just way too big.
I know, right?
And then secondly, a lot of people think, oh, well, not going to be in my lifetime, so actually it doesn't matter. Um,
Yeah, that's the majority,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But I look at my kids and I think, well, then no, I don't have any grandkids yet, but I'm thinking, what kind of world are we leaving for my grandkids and maybe my grandkids? What are we doing with our convenience, with our microwave meals that actually have no nutrition in them whatsoever anyway? Um, and that is obviously going to affect our genes and our DNA and stuff going forward as well.
Yeah,
You
already
know,
has a massive impact, right?
yeah, yeah. So if we're not, if we need to take one care of ourselves first, and I believe that part of taking care of ourselves is reconnecting with nature. And even if that is just getting out for a walk in nature every day, sniffing the flowers, maybe even if you can't get out, if you're not mobile, maybe have a planter indoors and
Yeah.
plant some things, just, if you have pets as well, they're a really great way. Um, but yeah, I think I think there needs to be a huge shift in how we look at things. But as you said, we're way too comfortable, aren't we? Yeah.
A lot of people are, and I see it in the realm that I work in as well, of visionary leaders still only really connecting part of this and they then go back into a comfortable dissonance in a way that they're not addressing all aspects. We all do it. We can
Mm.
only do what we're ready to do. And so all we're discussing now, it might sound really strong and really big and but it comes with, it's just facts. It's no judgment. Even though it used to break my heart to see what we were doing to each other, that
Mm.
actually does mess with my emotions, what we do to each other, right? But when we switch from what we're doing outside of ourselves, again, externalizing our own experience, we're always looking outside, right? We don't bring it back home. But when we bring it back home, nothing happens to us. It happens from us.
Mm.
We have immense power that we're only just tapping into. When we shift from everything's being done to us, which is the outrage which we're expressing at the situation,
Mm.
to everything happens from us, that is the game changer. When we realize that we have the ultimate power to change the narrative. And that's what we're doing. A lot of us are now know about New Earth. We know about the old paradigm shifting. All the old ways are falling. It's going to get incredibly messy, chaotic, and horrific. We're seeing that already. And I think that's where we're right at now. We are in a paralytic experience of not knowing what the hell to do.
Yeah.
That is not going to get better for a while. And in a way, this is the warrior's call. What are you going to choose? What are you going to choose?
Well, I mean, I know what I'm going to choose, but I think for a lot of that, though, to be able to make that choice, you need to have kindness and compassion towards yourself.
Yes.
You need to recognize where you come from and where you are now and where you want to go.
Yeah.
And know that, as you said earlier, it's not a linear path, is it? We're all going to have ups and downs. We're all going to have those moments where you get thrown back into that boiling pot
Yes.
and think, oh, F, what am I doing here again? And before you manage to take the leap out again. And to just know that, and to actually, if we can quiet that voice in our head that tells us, we're not doing it right, or if we can get that voice to be kind and compassionate to ourselves and saying, you're doing the best you can at every moment in time with what you know and with the experiences you've had.
Yeah. And reach out to the people you really are resonating with. This is what some of us don't do as well. We feel that we can't reach out for help, especially when we start to hear things, see things, experience things differently, because then we get people are going to call us crazy because maybe we hear a rose speak to us, for example, right? We're going, where's that voice coming from? So it can be as simple as that, as our little awakening process that we've all gone through, and we're up leveling every day. It can, no matter how long you've been on this path of becoming, awakening, whatever you want to call it, there are massive shifts that can really, really be big. And that's when we need to reach out to those that have been walking the path less trodden, as I call it, or the path that's traveled. And we're walking it in a different way now, so that our children and their children, hopefully, if we do the right thing, will not have to make the mistakes we did, will not have to undo all the trauma we had to undo. Yeah, that's how I look on it in this work, is we are paving the way for those who have yet to arrive here even, so they don't have all that to deal with.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, if we can just, if anything we can do for that. And I love what you said, actually, for people to call help, call out, ask for help, because what the whole purpose of this is connection. And what I am going to do is set up a community where all the speakers on the podcast can connect with the listeners as well, and they can get their answers. Their questions answered, I meant.
Answers questioned. I love that. Right?
Or they can get the help they need, or just even share their stories, because I mean the whole point of this entire podcast is that connection, for us to kind of grow together, to create a community, so that nobody feels isolated on this journey, and then for the people who have become curious from listening to you and to my other guests talk, and want to know more about this path, whether they want to know more because they want to diss us, or whether they want to know more because they want to join us.
Oh,
Curiosity is always a good thing. So
Always.
that's what I want to do, is to form a community. I've yet to decide where that community is going to be, but once I do, that will go out. Um, so yes, this was a wonderful talk. Really nice to hear your. I don't think we touched too much on the trauma. We did touch on a lot of, the way we can get out of it. So, I mean, just to summarize, if somebody's in a deep amount of pain at the moment and they just really feel like they're at that point where they just don't know how to get out, they just want to end the pain, what is the first thing you would tell them?
Definitely be kind to yourself. Acknowledgement of where you're at right now in that moment is crucial. And as you said earlier, being so loving and compassionate as to exactly how you're feeling, because nobody else is going to validate that for you. Only you can validate yourself. You don't need the validation of anyone else. And that is part of the work we do, is to own our own experience. Doesn't matter how awful and how messy it is. And to those of you who are listening and are in that depth of utter despair, listening to people that have come through that, not only in one piece, even though those pieces were very scattered initially, and we are on the path of calling every part of us home. And believe me, we're not done. We say after doing this work, that is just one element of it. And then we go, what's next? After a period of bringing it home and integrating it, that's really important. We can't just rush through this process, but get help, talk to someone, even if it is through your GP, if you have to go that route, because from that route outwards, I don't want to dish the mental health service because it needs help. And that's another indicament of our awful society right now, that they have cut the help. We know that because we couldn't get any, because we were homeless. We were lucky that we did get from a homeless charity.
Mm.
Then I learned so much more about trauma recovery. You do not need to relive your trauma to heal from it. And unfortunately, most talk therapies make you relive your trauma, which is not good because you go around in a cycle.
Yeah.
Well, even it might not make much sense right now, actually, it doesn't actually have to make sense. The words that you need to receive, you will hear. So take what you hear from us in these conversations. Take the parts that call to you and that land in your core. You feel it in your body as a truth. And this goes for self-talk as well, because you're probably feeling the truth of your words, which are not probably kind, if you're in that situation where you want to check out, right? I know that is probably the worst voice to listen to without dumbing it down, because you need to hear those words of you're done or whatever you want to do. And then know that there are so many of us that have come through and decided to stay. I have to be really careful about this conversation because of the depth of it. So this is just a snippet, is that we are here for the experience that we have chosen to have, but know that you create your reality. And that might not land with you if you're deeply in that trauma right now. Because if somebody had said to me at the time, you've created this, yeah, the ramifications are deep. So just reach out for help from a place of acceptance that it's time. And then as you begin walking yourself home again with the help that you get, then you'll feel more of the words that I've just been sharing about how we create our reality and how we can create a much more different one when you get the right help to help undo everything you've been conditioned with, and know that right now is the biggest time to reach out and say how you're feeling. Because when you reach out to the right direction, somebody will meet you and be able to take you to the next level. And then somebody else will take you to the next level, and keep thinking of it as going up a level, like a staircase.
Mm.
And yet you might go backwards, you might go sideways, you might tumble, because it's a non-linear process. I just get really upset at how healthcare costs. Sick care is free. We could talk for days, I'm sure.
We probably could. What I loved about what you said there was walk yourself home. Because for me, that's where a lot of, this feeling of isolation, of anxiety, of depression, and a lot of stress comes from is actually that loss of identity, that not being true to ourselves, trying to be something other than who we are. So I love that, kindness, compassion to yourself, and trying to love yourself, and actually it's all about rediscovering who you are, because I want to say you're not the anxiety, you're not the depression, you're not the stress. You're just a little bit lost. Yeah, and you just need to reconnect. You need to
Yeah.
take that walk home back to yourself.
Yeah, we do. We need to call those soul fragments home. We can't do it on our own. That's the big mistake we try and make. And that is why we stay in these patterns of trauma, because we are trying to do it on our own, because we think that's the only way.
Mm.
But and there's too much separation. So that's what we've been fed, right?
Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
about conditioning, and we need to undo all that conditioning, one layer of the onion at a time.
And sometimes it can just be one conversation with someone or something you hear that helps immensely to kind of unravel all of that. Well, I think we are well over time here.
Right.
So thank you very much, Peace, for joining me. For those of you who want to contact Peace, her details will be in the comment section or whatever, and I will share them obviously as well when I share the podcast. So thank you all for joining us and for listening in today, and thank you again, once again, Peace, for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Nim, for having me on the show today. I look
You're
forward
welcome.
to anyone that wants to contact is more than welcome. I will love you back to life again.
Thank you.